Hello and welcome to BA Brew. I'm Pete.
I'm Philippa.
And I'm Mike.
And today we shall be talking about the secret life of presenters. So little hacks, hints and tips that we picked up over many years of sometimes quite embarrassing situations when you're presenting to a group in whatever setting that may be. Sometimes as a facilitator, sometimes presenting to the board, sometimes teaching a course, whatever it may be. And hopefully we'll have a few ideas that you'll find useful along the way. So if I can go to you first of all then, Philippa, have you got something you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think what's stuck in my memory for probably around 30 years now, it was a key learning point for me in my life as a presenter. I'd spent quite a significant amount of time doing a piece of analysis work for a well-known food manufacturer. And it was looking at their sales team's use of a system and why it wasn't being used in the right way, where the issues were, and then putting forward some options for resolving some of the issues. So, as I said, a significant amount of work, an extensive report, which the customer had asked was prepared as a presentation. And I put it into a package which was pre-PowerPoint called Freelance, which anybody who's over the age of 50 probably is familiar with. It was, it was the package du jour back in the early 90s.
None of us, we've only been told by our
you're all too young. You're all too young. And what Freelance used to do is every time you put an animation into a slide, it created a new slide. So if you had 5 animations, you'd have on one slide, you'd have 5 separate slides, which meant that a 50-slide presentation turned into several hundred slides, individual slides, very quickly. So anyway, I ran through the presentation when I was in the office, and then went to client site to present back to the director and his senior manager, only to find on opening the file or trying to open it that the file had become corrupted. So I ended up having to do the presentation from memory on a flip chart. And it worked because I was young in those days. I had a good memory. I'm not so sure if I'd be quite so adept these days. So what that taught me as a presenter, always take a backup on a USB. But in those days, it was floppy disks. So I should have taken a backup on a floppy disk. And that's my top tip. Take a backup.
Could this even have been pre-mobile phones? Because I was going to say, and if you take it on a floppy disk, don't put it too close to your phone. But of course, we didn't have mobile phones in those days.
No, I had a phone in my car, but I didn't have it. It was actually attached by a cord.
Gosh,
to your house.
You
couldn't drive very
far. I know. Philippa, to have one of those.
I really was. It was a white BMW as well with a car phone.
Oh, top of your game.
I know. I thought I'd made it then, Pete.
You had honestly made it, I think. By anyone else's standards, you had. So, Mike, anything from your vast history?
That really chimes with me, actually. Number of times things have become corrupted. I do just about remember Freelance, but I can't remember doing any of the content in it. But that's probably just my memory, not that I didn't do it. But having a spare copy has certainly been useful, but it's the other things that you need to think about as well. So spare batteries for your presenter mouse or your mouse, remembering to bring a power supply for your laptop, cables, VGA cables, HDMI cables, a multitude of cables and long cables. So I've been places where you had to present and the cable is only, the HDMI cable, it's only 1 meter, but the desk is 2 meters away from where it's got to plug in. So you kind of have to balance things a little bit. Adapters as well. So sometimes you've got a VGA cable to go to the projector and only HDMI, so having an adapter. So you end up with quite a bag full of all of these things that you take just in case. So that's probably my thing. I'm trying to think of some disasters that have happened.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a disaster, but at the time, of course, it's hugely embarrassing, isn't it? And especially if you've got a bunch of people that are sitting there waiting for you to start, and then they're kind of fidgeting, and you're trying to get stuff working.
I guess the other thing, just thinking to a recent event, I think if you're working with a co-presenter, sometimes you have to think what they might need as well. So at a recent session, we had a presenter. I was co-presenting with somebody who had come over from Europe, and they didn't have an adapter for a European plug. So that was a little bit of a panic station to run around and get that. Lawrence came to the rescue there. He was a superstar on that. But I now know I'm going to keep an adapter in my bag for that, just in case.
The Kate Crusader, that is Lawrence Darville. Shout out for Lawrence. I had a sort of similar adapter kind of compatibility issue once, but it was even more embarrassing in a way, because I was running a course on client site, and it was for let's just say a major British broadcaster, and I had
major British Broadcasting Corporation.
A major British broadcaster. That's all I'm going to say. And I got there, and I got quite an old-fashioned laptop, so it still had a VGA port. But of course, this broadcaster was very state-of-the-art, and it took about 2 hours for them to run around and look in their mass archives of technology to find a VGA cable to plug into their very high-tech HDMI screen. I mean, this was going back a few years, but it was very early days for HDMI. But I hadn't got an adapter, and I couldn't. I didn't have a cable either. I just assumed, oh right, they always have these things, don't they, on site? Especially, something like that. Oh, they'll have one, but never assume is, I guess, one of my mantras from that point onwards.
Yeah. I'd agree with that, Pete. Extending that conversation a bit, I think what is safe to assume is whatever venue you turn up to do your presentation at, test the data projection equipment, arrive an hour early and test it. If you've got multimedia built into your slide deck, for example, a video clip, or you need to go to the internet to show a YouTube video, make sure you test it. The number of times I've been caught out with no sound. You play the video, you can try with an MP4 file on your laptop, no sound. Go to the same clip on YouTube, no sound. And it takes the tech team at the venue, let's just say, some time to resolve that issue. Or in one case at the BA conference a few years ago, they weren't able to sort it out, which meant that about 25% of the presentation I was due to deliver couldn't happen. So we needed to adapt on the fly.
You'd think we'd be getting better at things like that, wouldn't you, as the technology improves? But I must admit, I ran a course probably about 6 months ago, probably a little bit longer than that. And the client, again, this was on a client site, and the client said, can you connect to the projector via the Teams meeting or whatever it was? It may have been Teams, it may have been Zoom. Yeah. There's lots of alternatives, aren't there? But one of these such things. And then, got there, and, the screen was there. I was here with, various cables and stuff like that. But no, couldn't do it that way, because you had to connect to the meeting. So I then had to be invited to the meeting, join the meeting, and then granted permission to share my screen on their screen. And in the end, I was just thinking, it's now taken us like half an hour, or the best part of half an hour, to get started. And there was a cable there. There was an HDMI cable. And I nearly said to them, can I just plug this in here and just plug it straight to the thing that I'm standing right next to?
Yeah.
But oh no, you have to do it through all of these gubbins, because that's the modern way, isn't it? So
yes, it's not made easy.
Coming back to the complexity, we've got much more complex environments now, and I've been caught out by making an assumption that I'll be able to connect to Wi-Fi locally and get a signal. So, okay, I don't need it for my slides, but if I've got something, go to demonstrate something on the internet, if I can't connect to the Wi-Fi, then that can be a bit of a problem. So having contingency plans for all of the bits and pieces, not just your set of slides. What are you going to do if you can't get onto the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, absolutely. But even going more old school than that, as presenters, it's great to have a flip chart in the room and actually spare pieces of flip chart paper. I'm sure we've all turned up where there's a flip chart stand, but no actual paper, or there is a flip chart, but 99% of the sheets have been used.
Yeah, and you can turn it over, but you can only turn it over once, can't you? And
you can only turn it over once.
Thinking, oh, I'm really clever, I'm going to turn it over and use it back, and then you realise that somebody's already done that.
Somebody's already, has already done that.
Where do you go from there?
Exactly. So
making sure you take pens.
Yeah.
Because there's very rarely any pens in the rooms nowadays.
If there are pens, test the pens that are there as well. Make sure that they are whiteboard pens if you're on a whiteboard and not marker pens.
Yeah. That embarrassing moment when you wipe it and it just smudges and the whole thing goes on. No.
I have a top tip. Top tip. If you do write on a whiteboard with a permanent marker, not that I've done it, of course. Coca-Cola gets it off. Right. So always have a can of Coke in your bag. Other brands are available.
Indeed, yes, indeed. It could be any form of cola.
Any form of cola, but the full fat type, not the diet version.
And of course, if you are lacking a cup, a container of the fizzy stuff, there is also another one. I don't know how effective this is in comparison to the cola one, but if you find a non-permanent pen and you write over the permanent pen, you can then wipe it off. So yeah, I have actually done that on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
But that's if you've got the two sets of pens there in the first place. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I mean, I've used methylated spirits or other alcohols. Not that I carry a lot of alcohol with me when I'm going around to presentations.
It's going to be a confession or something. About spent youth or something like that.
The other thing, of course, is nail varnish remover wipes have the same effect.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe what we'll have to do is see if we can kind of patent a trainer kit and then start to sell it. And you can buy it off the shelf, with everything you're likely to ever need, for every eventuality of situation. But actually, it's never going to happen, is it? There's always going to be the odd one. I remember once thinking, right, okay, I'm going to a client site. I better make sure that I've got my charger. Right, I've got my charger with me. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Got everything else. Got my little clicker. But what I didn't realise is that actually I can be very clumsy as a trainer. And I found when I got there that I had to put my laptop on a table and then string the power cable towards the wall. And I got a very odd laptop where it had got the power pack built into the plug. I don't know whether you've ever seen it. So you get this huge block on the back of the plug, and it makes it actually quite precarious. And I happened to trip over it and then rip the power pack off the plug.
Wow.
And what I hadn't realised is that I hadn't fully charged my laptop before I'd left out in the morning. So I almost had a dead laptop without a power pack. And you can't just plug any old power pack into any laptop. One of our colleagues, Julian, once did that and blew up the laptop. So beware. But yeah, making sure you've got a fully charged laptop just in case. Not that I'm paranoid.
Or actually even a laptop. A colleague of mine drove to a customer site, and when they got there, they found that they'd left their laptop at home, which caused a few issues. So they were able to borrow a laptop from the customer and get the files sent across via secure transfer to the customer, who then loaded the laptop with the file. So all was well in the end. But yes, that's a top tip. Make a list
Yeah, absolutely.
the night before.
Definitely. And of course, the other thing that you can't always rely on is yourself and your body. And I remember on numerous occasions getting sort of halfway through a course, and then all of a sudden, being at the end of a cold, you think, oh, I'm all right now. I feel okay. You start and you've got a very loud voice and all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the course, you can hardly speak. So I do have another top tip for that. This is a little bit of product placement here, blatant product placement. But I have to say, of all the various things that I have tried over the years, this one really works. And I talked to a number of my colleagues, and they also have the same top tip. So apologies for that. Mike's got his back as well. You notice that we've got them with us at all times. We're that paranoid.
I've just taken a screenshot of that, Pete.
Yeah, they're not the most tasty of throat pastilles, but they are vegan for any vegans out there. They do the job very quickly.
For those people that are just listening, Pete, we probably need to say what the name of the product is, because they'll be wondering. Actually, they could just watch the video, couldn't they?
That's a really good point. Yes. So if you are listening and you couldn't just see what I just did, this product is called Vocal Zone. Apparently, it's used by singers and other professionals who need a voice that's consistent and doesn't let them down every 5 minutes. So yeah, that's another top tip.
The last tip I've got, adding to that, is a well-known sort of speaker, conference speaker, said to me, never drink sparkling water as part of your drink. Always drink still, because sparkling water, the carbon dioxide in it, really affects your throat, which is something I didn't know before.
No idea about that. Yeah, I must admit, I don't particularly like sparkling water, I have to say, so I never do. But yeah, never heard.
I like it. It's like non-alcoholic champagne.
That's probably pushing it a little bit, Philippa, but yeah, I know where you're coming from. So any final thoughts from you then, Mike?
Well, on that point of drinking, I think making sure you're well hydrated is quite important, because if you're talking for any length of time, then your throat does dry out. So having some kind of drink. I think I've also heard that if you drink cold water, that can actually affect your voice as well. So you don't want to have water that's too cold. So yeah, just make sure you're well hydrated, although not so well hydrated that you need to step out halfway through your presentation, because that might be a bit of a challenge.
Indeed. There's some things that we just cannot control, and Mother Nature is one of those things.
Indeed.
And on that bombshell, thanks for joining us today. If you have any ideas for any future episodes, please contact us at babrew@assistkd.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone.